How you doing? This is Jack Sasso and Brian Colomere. We have Chapter 3, Strength in Thinking and Behaviors.
So the focus questions that we did before we started were, why is it important to convey students the what and the why of thinking? What is the value of teaching students how to use wait times? How can teachers plan for scaffolding student thinking and learning? And what are some alternative approaches to making thinking and learning visible?
Some of the chapter's main points. As a teacher, you expect thoughtful responses and you want to afford time for thinking, also scaffold thinking and responding, and you also want to make things visible for the students.
So expect thoughtful responses. Few students are actively engaged in school because they don't feel challenged. You want to challenge your students with questions. Even like that's why students like we don't want the students to be bored. You as a teacher should start convincing students that we intend our question to be genuine vehicles for their learning. We want them to know that we are helping them learn. Try to get responses that show students to think beyond the correct answer. They compare for good questions. We want students to know why they got the right answer, basically what that means. Oh, thoughtful responses. There are two simple definition of thinking that can be the beginning point for a conversation with students. Thinking is a process of making personal meanings of information experiences, and thinking is the process of connection, making of a new fact, concept, or experience to what you already know and have stored in your long-term memory. So we want students to retain the information, and by doing this, we want them to get not just the right answer. We want them to elaborate and think about how they get the right answer. This is how they're going to retain the information.
Next is to afford time for thinking. This is, as a teacher, you want to convince the students that you actually care about their thinking by presenting them with questions worth thinking about and convincing them that we care about the answer. So don't just get the answer and move on. Ask them how they got it, why they think that. Make sure they understand you care. And afford time basically means that we give students an ample amount of time for them to think critically about the question they are asked and to build an educational response to the question. So you don't want to give too much time where the student overthinks, but you want to give enough time so the student doesn't just blurt out an answer. Individuals process questions and generate responses at different rates and different manners, so it's important to understand that the student you are talking to, this will be easier as you get to know each individual in your class. So you don't want to be asking like high level questions for a student that's not exactly there yet. You don't want to ruin their confidence and bring them down. You want to keep them confident.
You want to, if a student is really good in a subject, you want to ask them a really tough question because they'll get bored with it. So you want to ask them something that they can elaborate on and think about. Okay, so we have a video for wait time. We're gonna play that right now.
Hi, I'm Alex for Teach Like This, and this is Wait Time. Wait time is a deliberate extension of the time between asking a question and eliciting a response from the students. Increased wait time leads to better thought answers, longer responses, less prompting from the teacher, and higher quality learning responses. Wait time can be used in two ways. First, it can be structured into an activity in which students know that they have a certain amount of time in order to develop the answer to the question. Also, wait time can be used in class when teachers are promoting clear understanding. This was a job that I felt too, beginning my teaching year. I would sit back with the lesson in the way that I found myself relying on the students that would raise their hand first, and I would understand my learning objectives. However, after giving my unit test, I was finding that not all students were learning the material. I found my increasing learning time. While following the students that raised their hand immediately, and while not all students were learning as nearly, I was better able to gauge the effectiveness of my lesson in class. As a recap, increasing the amount of wait time in between asking a question and
So that video basically talked about how much time we want to give the students to answer the question and why this is helpful. A lot of times, as teachers, we'll just call on the first student that raises their hand, and a lot of times that's a student that always raises his hand and is always engaged. We want to give the other students time to think about the question, and maybe they'll get a chance to raise their hand, so we can call on them. Because a lot of times students they'll be like, oh, someone else will answer the question. I don't need to. So the best wait time is 3 seconds is the most effective in terms of achieving shorter or longer times were less positively correlated with student success. Increased wait time is related to a number of student outcomes, including improved achievement and retention, greater number of higher cognitive reports. So basically, we want students to retain the information we're teaching them, and giving them a good wait time of 3 seconds will help them retain that information.
So next up is scaffolding student thinking and learning. Teachers want to operate within the student zone of proximal development, so don't give any questions too hard to have the students lose confidence, but don't give them one that will make them feel dumb or belittle them. This basically means you want the students to be challenged when learning, but not overly challenged because they might give up, lose confidence. Scaffolding can also be support given during the learning process, which is tailored to the need of students. One of your goals as a teacher is to get the best and most complex answer out of a student. So try to give them some time to think about it, make them give a good answer. Honor your students' answers, but also stay clear whether they are right or wrong. These type of comments are given with the best intentions. And students know when their teacher is being less than honest with them. Making thinking visible. This can give students a high level of confidence to ask questions, raise their hands in class, and teachers can make thinking visible by making teacher models and graphic organizers that support the students' metacognitive development. When students need help or share their opinions and ideas with the rest of the class, this leads to more thoughtful discussions. And modeling is only appropriate when the individual doing the modeling is proficient in that skill.
So this relates to TGFU because this is planning for learning variability. We want students to be able to see the information for students that may, like, they're visual learners. So that's why we make graphic organizers models on our whiteboard when we're teaching our lessons. I know I've done that on every single one of my lessons, and Jack has probably as well. We also want to talk about more about TGFU. In our lesson planning, we went over making students understand the information. In TGFU, we're building little by little for how they're going to understand. We do a game one practice task, and this is like the same thing. We want students to learn little by little in steps. I know in one of my lesson plans, I asked questions and I gave the appropriate wait time because I didn't just want the first student I saw to raise my hand. I wanted to give the whole students an opportunity.
You also want to give positive feedback to remain students confident, and you also want to create a group discussion.
We don't want any students to get discouraged. And
And
that's it.
that's it for our project. Thank you.
Thanks.